Welcome back to the show. Today we're asking a massive question. Is he a narcissist? If you've been having the thought of the person that you're with might be narcissistic, have narcissistic tendencies, might be on some scale of narcissism, first I want to just acknowledge the strength that it takes to get to that place to ask yourself that question. Because when we start to wonder and ask ourselves questions like this, it really signals that part of us is ready for more information. Part of us is ready to explore something other than what we've been telling ourselves or what we've been justifying away. And we can do that while also feeling scared as fuck about what the answer might be. So just the fact that you're here doing the exploration is massive, okay? For me, in my last relationship, I wasn't aware of the term narcissist or narcissism. And it wasn't until I was out of the relationship that I happened to stumble upon this podcast that was talking about the narcissistic cycle. And my jaw was on the floor because I was like, I check every one of those boxes. Was he a narcissist? And when I asked myself that question, it took me a while to even be able to absorb and resonate all that information that I had just gathered, because the first thought that I had was, well, what does that mean about me? What does that mean about me that I allowed this person in my life, or that I allowed this narcissistic person to treat me the way that he did for several years? So it's not a small question, and it's not a small answer. So my intention for this episode is to help you start to piece together the answer to this question for yourself. And it's going to take you being willing and open to answering the questions honestly, to be able to come to that answer for yourself. So this might be an episode that you re-listen to a couple of times. You might revisit this in a couple of months. Just take it at your own pace. But what we're going to talk about today are 3 simple questions that you can ask yourself to start to piece out the answer. Is he a narcissist? What type of relationship am I in? And then I'm going to give you some guidance around what you can do if you move through those questions and you're like, shit, yes. What you can do if you feel like you have been or are with somebody who's narcissistic. And then at the end, I'm going to give you this uncommon truth about narcissism because we need to hear it. So stick around for that. So take a deep breath and really help your nervous system come back into center. Remind yourself that you're safe if you start to feel those oh shits, or the sadness, the anger, whatever it is, whatever emotions come up. And then at the end of the episode, I'm going to offer an oracle card pull. And this is something we do every episode. It is a specific message that you can take with you in your healing this week. So it can help anchor you, remind you of who you are, remind you of where you're going. Welcome to Heartbreak to Wholeness, the podcast helping you heal from the mindfuck of narcissistic relationships and move towards the secure, peaceful woman you want to become. We will explore all of the tools that you need to get through your grief, to move past those I'll be alone forever fears, and rebuild your confidence so you can move forward in healthy relationships as your full self. Never to get sucked into the narcissistic spell again. I am your host, Bree Walta, relationship clarity coach and EFT certified practitioner. Let's dive in. Okay, so here's 3 questions that you can ask yourself if you think you might be with somebody who is narcissistic. The first is, what am I experiencing day to day? I really want you to look at how life is. How does life feel for you? Not how they're telling you it should feel, not how they may be guilting you into thinking that it should feel, but what do you feel? On a day-to-day basis, what is life like? Do you feel depleted and stressed and over-analyzing what he's feeling, trying to really contort yourself to make sure you're not going to rock the boat? Do you feel anxious that you might say the wrong thing? And is that pretty consistent, where you feel like you kind of have to edit what you say? You know the right things and the wrong things to say that might start a fight. Do you feel confused after leaving conversations? Do you feel like everything's your fault? Do you feel afraid? in some way, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And when you think about these questions, also thinking about if there is a contrast to how you feel with other people in your life. So if you think about yourself and how you show up in this relationship with your partner, perhaps you feel depleted and anxious and walking on eggshells. And then you go to a friend's house, or say you go away with a friend for a weekend, and you have girls' time, and you're able to be yourself. You feel relaxed, you feel like joyful, you feel recharged, refilled. And then almost at the end of that experience, you're dreading going back home. Oftentimes that points to something in the relationship that isn't working, some sort of manipulation, some sort of fear tactic, something is awry in that experience. Something isn't feeling right. And when we think about how much time we spend with our partners, that's a lot of time to be feeling depleted, anxious, hopeless, afraid, whatever the feeling is that you're feeling. The second main question to ask yourself is, what red flags have I seen? Many, many women that I work with, and myself included, can reflect back into the relationship and say, I knew something was wrong. I knew that he was lying. I knew that didn't feel right. I knew that felt manipulative. And there were these red flags that they knew on some level, they could recognize later, but they were ignoring them while in the relationship. So this question specifically is going to take a lot of willingness to be honest with yourself. So what is your gut saying? What is that nagging feeling? What is that question that keeps returning, that thought that keeps returning, that has you even asking this question if he is a narcissist? Have there been moments where it just didn't feel right? Have there been times that you've been asked to act against your values, right? Have there been moments where he did something, or you caught him in a lie, or his actions didn't meet his words, and you were like, that feels weird. That feels off. And can you recall any of those moments? And then what are your friends and family saying? So had they seen red flags? Has there been a consistent message to you that, hey, we recognize that you're different, or you act different with this person than we've ever seen you act, and not in a great way. We see that you're more anxious. We see that you're more consumed. We see that you don't have time for us anymore, that you don't come around as much anymore. What is the feedback that you're getting from your friends and family? And again, being open to their answer, being open to remembering the answer, meeting yourself without judgment as you move through all of these questions. The third overarching question is, do you feel shame or embarrassment about the relationship? I used to take a lot of walks, and I used to try to make sense of what the fuck was happening in my relationship by myself. And I did that a lot. It was a lot of alone processing. It was a lot of trying to make sense. It was a lot of isolation in my own experience. And in the moments where I would try to talk to friends, I would hear myself explain or try to explain what was happening. And then I would feel so much shame for expressing literally how unhappy I was, yet continuing to stay in that relationship, continuing to think that things were going to be different. It was almost when I voiced it out loud, it became more real. And that was a little bit too much for me to accept at that time. So have you stopped talking to people about it because you feel shame or embarrassment, or because you just feel so confused around how to even start trying to explain what's happening that it's not even worth it? Do you feel really alone? Feeling really alone, feeling the shame, this embarrassment, those are all indicators that something is not quite right. So those are the three main overarching questions. And then what I want to say is the questions may not tell you 100% if he is a narcissist. right? Because that would take a psychological diagnosis from a mental health professional in which your partner is opting for. So you're likely never going to get the actual truth. But what matters is how you feel in the relationship, regardless of the label. If they're narcissistic, if they're a narcissist, if they have narcissistic personality disorder, if they have some other sort of mental diagnosis, what matters is the consequence. What matters is how their behavior is affecting you and how you feel in the relationship. But I so get that desire, and I had this hunger to want to know why. If you're looking back on a relationship, or even if you're in the relationship and you're like, well, how can they act this way? Why are they doing these things? Why are they consistently lying? Why are they consistently cheating? What is like driving their behavior? And especially if you're interested on any level in self-development, which I would argue that you are if you're listening to this podcast, it can be really easy to try to want to analyze them, analyze their behavior. And I did too. And I went so far as thinking that if my ex checked the boxes for narcissism, that would help absolve me from all of the pain that I was feeling. That would help give me peace. That would help give me justice. That would be in some way his apology, because he just is a narcissist. And I was really stuck on needing that label. And what I recognized in my pursuit of that was that there was still the same wreckage. I still woke up feeling afraid that I was going to be alone forever because of the things that he instilled in me while we were together in the relationship. I still had to move houses and file for a restraining order because of my physical and psychological safety. I still had to feel the depth of the grief from a shattered heart because I thought that we were going to be together forever. I thought that he was my Prince Charming. So whether or not I ever got a diagnosis, and I didn't, it didn't take away all of that other stuff. Everything was still true for me based on what I had experienced in the relationship. So while learning about narcissism helped me sort of put a framework of predictability around the experience that I was having, and I could almost remove myself from it feeling so personal at times. At times it still felt very personal, but I could sort of see him as, if it wasn't me, it was going to be another woman that he was treating this way, and there were several. It didn't heal me. It gave me a framework. It helped my brain sort of make sense of, which is what our brain is trying to do. So in part, that gave me some resolve, but it didn't heal. It didn't heal it. I had to feel my way through all the shit that happened. It's not the easy button. It's not the button that makes everything go away. It's not the sexy option, but it's the way that you get to the other side. So if you're in it, I see you so deeply, and you aren't alone. Which leads me to your next point. My next point is, what can you do? What can you do if you have been moving through this and you're like, maybe he's a narcissist, maybe he isn't, but the relationship feels very painful and I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to move on from it. I don't know where to start in picking up the pieces of who I am anymore. And what I will say is that you need support. You've been trying to figure it all out on your own, most likely. Maybe you have a therapist. Maybe you've been trying couples therapy. But likely there's been a lot of isolation. There's been a lot of you taking on that responsibility to try to figure it out. And you need somebody to guide you through that. You need a coach. You need a therapist. You need a group of people who understand what you're going through. You need a safe place to process what has happened, or we will stay in this guilt-ridden gaslighting of ourselves to try to numb the pain. And while the podcasts and the YouTube videos and the self-help books are helpful, again, to give you the framework, to give you the information, there needs to be a place that where you can have somebody actually witness you and actually hold that space and help you specifically process through specifically your specific situation. Okay? Moving through the traumas, moving through the confusion to help you rebuild your strength and rebuild your confidence. So I hope this podcast episode is helpful in giving you a place to start, giving you some questions that you can go back, listen to, pause, journal around, reflect on while you're walking, reflect on while you are making dinner, whatever you're doing, taking the time to actually think about these things and allow yourself to come to an answer, knowing that you don't have to make a decision right in this moment, but letting this episode guide you through those 3 overarching questions that you can use to really help piece out the situation that you're in, letting it help remind you of the importance of finding support if you do come to the conclusion that you've been through something that was massively painful and confusing and you don't know where to start. And then reminding yourself that it doesn't matter if he's a narcissist or not. What matters is your experience of the relationship. And they don't have to be a narcissist in order to validate you leaving. They don't have to be the villain in order to validate you leaving. The simple fact that things aren't working, that you're not feeling good, that you're not able to be your true self, that is enough. That is enough to choose to shift your path from this relationship to another one. So let's pull a card to offer you that specific message that you can use this week in your healing. I'm just starting to shuffle the deck, just tuning into the audience and what the message is that would be most helpful for you today. We got the frog. If you're not watching the video, it's a picture of a frog that looks like it's in contemplation. So I'm going to find the message in the book and I'm going to read you the message. Frog visits you with a message to trust your intellect. He is an ancient knower and is deeply sensitive to his environment. What you are thinking, experiencing, and knowing is not to be minimized or ignored. Write it down. Keep a journal. Gather your data. Use your mind. Trust your thinking. Don't let other people tell you what you know. Your knowledge and contribution are what is needed now. Now is not the time to hold back your thoughts. The answers you possess could shift your ecosystem in positive and remarkable ways. I never pre-pull these cards, you guys. This is always how these cards work, where it's like, fucking spot on. That's exactly what we talked about today. Trust your intellect. Trust your knowing. Trust your intuition. Trust the answers that come up when you start to answer these questions. As you move through the answers to these questions and you come to that realization that you need support, please reach out to me. This is the work that I am the most passionate about from my own experience, being able to guide women through this confusion, to find clarity, to find themselves, to reprogram the way they do relationships so that you don't experience painful relationships ongoing. It would be my honor to be able to meet you, to be able to hear your story and see how I can help. So in the show notes, there is a link to an interest form. You'd start with that, and then I will reach out to you and we'll schedule a free session. And if you're not quite ready to fill out the interest form and to have the full session, you can always just join my email list. And I send out all kinds of information similar to this podcast about narcissism, about healing, uncommon information that you might not be getting through social media or elsewhere to help you make sense of what is happening. So you can join my email list through the link in the show notes as well. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.